our thousands of members are waiting for his response anxiously. I'm not putting that in the category of hope. But I think it is very important to let General Haig know how you feel about what's happening. Really, it matters. I know that he may never get to read it, probably will not get to read it. But the sooner we get going with their comeuppance, the better. I just want to say one word about the hostages. I'm glad they're safely back from Iran. And with all the exuberance, I do wonder if we have learned the obvious lessons. That vastly superior military might is no guarantee of security. That supporting repressive dictators earns the hatred of those they repress. That repression will not be endured indefinitely by people. That a virtually unarmed people can topple an overwhelmingly armed tyrant. That negotiations are better than military confrontation. That self-determination is moral, legal, and deeply desirable. That the U.S. should abandon its ill-fated, outdated, and increasingly berated interventionist foreign and military policy. Well, it often helps, I think, to collect things to be hopeful about. I've been doing that lately, and I'm glad for this opportunity to share a few with you, which you probably are aware of, but when you bunch them all together, it feels pretty good. There are at least a dozen major, significant new disarmament coalitions in existence in the last couple of years. A Temple professor, I shouldn't have said where he was, a university professor said to me the other day that if those people in Washington knew how totally out of it they are as far as these college kids are concerned, well, that made me feel good too. The Congress has passed a measure to conduct a study of a National Peace Academy. The report has been turned in, and plans for the National Peace Academy are supposed to go forward, perhaps taking the shape of a branched out institution in many sites around the country where people can become involved in the peaceful settlement of disputes and conflicts, and as models for the international area. Israel at the United Nations has changed its mind about supporting a nuclear-free zone for the Middle East and has withdrawn its objections. Norway has decided to make itself a nuclear-free zone. How about that? And the Labour Party in England has elected a nuclear disarmament leader. And it has been revealed that the notorious or the famous Team B report is based on false perceptions and misperceptions. The Team B report of the CIA, you may recall, was authorized when George Bush was head of the CIA and appointed a group of hardline militarists and generals to investigate the Soviet military condition. And they seem to conclude that Soviets were indeed spending twice as much as we thought they were on their military effort. And therefore, of course, they must be building twice as fast and were determined to overtake us and were well on the way to doing so. This was in 1976 when this report was issued, and it was bandied about, hooted all about the country, struck terror into everybody's minds. And people, mostly members of Congress, leaders of government, still believe it, but it was false. It was based on misperceptions, false perceptions. It's a lie. And today, on the Today Show, one Tom Gervasi, who is with the Defense Intelligence Security Agency, said as much. That was another cause for hope. He said it very eloquently, and I was delighted to hear it. Barbara Mikulski, Bob Edgar, and what's his name, Stubbs, Congressman Stubbs, did go to the Honduran-Nicaraguan border, and they cabled a demand to Reagan that military aid to El Salvador be halted. A conference of 72 nations has recently signed a convention agreeing to make war more humane. Well, I have a little problem with that. This means they'll be banning some excessively injurious weaponry, such as booby traps, not napalm, unfortunately, and some unnecessarily indiscriminate weapons. Dum-dum bullets, but not nukes, unfortunately. But it's a tiny little step in the right direction. At least it shows that agreement is still possible. In this winter's General Assembly, Foreign Minister Gromyko made a specific proposal that the nuclear powers agree to halt all nuclear explosions for a period of 1 year while they continue working on the nuclear test ban, total ban. I could not find that reported anywhere in the U.S. press. It's just another example of the many proposals that have been made in international forums, which we have not responded to, that is, we, the U.S. government. That's not a cause for hope, but the fact that the proposals are being made and will be heard about because we must tell about them is a cause for hope. In 1982, there will be a second special session devoted to disarmament. Again, that's one of those insurmountable opportunities. The European Economic Community stated on December 2nd that they favored the holding of a European disarmament conference. Then there was Copenhagen, when in July, more than 10,000 women came together under the banner of equality, development, and peace. And it was wonderful. And I had the feeling that if it were up to the women, it would happen. And then there was the Women's Pentagon Action in November, which you know about, and be assured we'll be back. There's a women's emergency campaign to stop the arms race, which is about to be launched. The resistance to the first registration for the draft is conservatively estimated to run between 12 and 20%. This year will be concluded the longest conference in United Nations history on the law of the sea. And although it's not perfect, it will set up an authority, an enterprise, and a tribunal with provision for the peaceful settlement of disputes. And then, of course, there are the tax revolt in Michigan, the governor's revolt against the Reagan program, the Democratic congressional revolt. There are a lot of good, revolting things happening. And most of all, of course, the last 8 are the plowshares 8. Last but not least. And we share the high hopes generated by the courage and faith and the hopes of these persons. For already many people have learned much from their nonviolent direct action, and many more will learn more. And we thank them for their devotion and hope that their action and that this festival of hope of this beloved community will become a veritable fountain of hope that will water the grassroots, the growing power of the grassroots, to call a stop to this nuclear madness and just try what love will do.